Okay, we're live now. Okay, great. This is the Senate Government Operations Committee. Again, on Friday, May 12th, we're taking a look at H 517, which is a charter that we discussed yesterday, and we have an amendment to consider on the charter. So we have with us our Chief Counsel, Jen Carby, to take us through the amendment.
Great. Jen Carby, Legislative Counsel. So we are looking, as the chair said, at an amendment to H 517. This would add a new section that would be section 1A that would amend 24 VSA section 363 on deputy state's attorneys to allow, in addition to the existing authority for a state's attorney to appoint their own deputies, it would also allow the executive committee of the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs to authorize or direct the department's executive director to appoint deputy state's attorneys who shall have all of the same powers and duties of any other deputy state's attorney, except that they may prosecute cases in any county of the state. And it allows the executive committee to have the authority to limit the term and scope of those appointments and to remove such, and it should say deputies, it says duties, so it's with editing right now, such deputies at the committee's pleasure. Then there is just a conforming change in subsection B to address that it wouldn't just be the state's attorney making appointments. This is on the pay for the deputy fixed by the executive director, but shall not exceed the pay of the state's attorney making the appointment or other appointing authority. No changes in subsection C, and then in subsection D, it has the new language in it that says if appointed, and existing law says if appointed and under oath, a deputy state's attorney may prosecute cases in another county if the other county files the deputy's appointment. This specifies that that's for deputies appointed by a state's attorney, because the ones that are appointed by the executive committee through the executive director would have statewide jurisdiction. And then in the event of a vacancy in the office of the state's attorney, the appointment of the deputy, and then it specifies except a deputy appointed by the executive committee or executive director shall expire upon appointment of the new state's attorney. And that is it.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Let me just walk and tell the pro tem what we're doing here, because I don't think anybody's filled them in.
That's fine.
Okay,
Go ahead.
just because they may hold the floor.
Yep. So are there any
This is
questions?
getting edited right now.
Senator White, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to be very clear with this language. There would not be an instance that would occur, or let's say there was a state's attorney who no longer should be a state's attorney, or for whatever reason is not a state's attorney that's functioning at the time. The person who could be appointed under this language, a different state's attorney, they would not continue on in the instance that there was an election or a different appointment.
So I want to be clear that this is about appointing deputy state's attorneys.
Deputies.
That's not right. It is not is not filling a vacancy for a state's attorney. It is not appointing a new state's attorney. It is talking about deputies who work in the office of the state's attorney and serve as deputy state's attorneys. And I will confirm with the experts on the side, but
Okay,
yes.
and that person, okay, because my thought was this was everyone moving up kind of scenario, but that's not what this is responding to.
Right, this is
Okay.
right. This is
Okay.
there are several deputy state's attorneys, I believe, in each state's attorney's office who do much of the work of actually prosecuting cases. So this is allowing for others to be for there to be two ways of appointing deputies, both a state's attorney appointing their own, but also the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs appointing deputy state's attorneys who can prosecute cases in any county in the event there's need.
So in the instance that a state's attorney was no longer acting as the state's attorney and then therefore was not appointing deputy state's attorneys, that's when that would give them the ability to appoint someone.
So this authority would be concurrent authority. So the department could appoint, this is effective on hazard, could appoint if there was a need to appoint additional deputies to serve under these terms in any county of the state. There is language in the existing law that specifies that if there's a vacancy in the office of the state's attorney, then the appointment of the deputy expires upon appointment of a new state's attorney. So that's kind of the relationship between those deputies. But this would specify, and as an exception, that a deputy appointed by the executive committee would continue to serve.
Okay, that's where I was trying to kind of get to. So is there a scenario where the state's
Correct me if I'm getting
attorney,
it wrong.
the state's attorney would appoint a deputy, that then you would appoint a deputy, and there'd somehow be like competing deputies?
Well, there are many deputies, so it's okay to have more than one deputy at a time,
Yeah.
right? I think there's multiple in most or all state's attorney's offices.
But
Can I phone a friend here on that?
John Campbell, go ahead.
And I'm going to be first, Evan will explain, because he actually is one of those prosecutors who get appointed at different counties for
Can
different.
you just state your name for the record, please?
Absolutely. So my name is Evan Meenan, and I am a deputy state's attorney. My primary responsibility is to handle appeals on behalf of all of the state's attorneys. So one easy way to conceptualize how this statutory change would work is by looking at my specific position. So each state's attorney has the authority to appoint deputies, but it's not like a deputy. There could be 10 deputies in a county. And those deputies, for the most part, only have the authority to prosecute cases in their counties. There's a couple of workarounds, but that's the general rule. So what does that mean for someone like me who is assigned to the executive director's office, and the expectation is I'm going to handle cases for all 14 state's attorneys? What that means is I need to take the same exact oath of office 14 times, okay? This bill, or this change, would permit the executive committee, which is comprised of a subset of the state's attorneys, to authorize our executive director to deputize people, which means folks like myself who are assigned to the executive director's office could just take one oath, file it in each county, and then prosecute cases in any county. The sort of added benefit, and I think your question was designed to talk about what happens if a state's attorney goes missing for some reason, either they retire or they resign or something, maybe they fall ill, unfortunately. In that type of situation right now, the deputies in that county can continue prosecuting their cases, but what happens, for example, if there's a work shortage in that county? This language would help ensure the continuation of prosecutions, because it would allow the executive director to address that work shortage by saying, I'm going to now appoint you, I'm going to deputize you. We don't have a state's attorney, but I'm going to deputize you so that you can go into that county and you can assist, pick up some extra cases, handle some extra hearings, do things of that nature.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to understand. But is there a scenario under this in which, let's say that state's attorney recovered miraculously and was acting again as state's attorney? Would you have competing people potentially covering the same caseload?
Most likely, the answer is there's the possibility for some conflicts, but I don't think that possibility would become a reality very frequently.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because usually, although there's some exceptions, because we do cover for each other and help one another, but when you get assigned a case, you're assigned the case.
Okay, so there couldn't be that.
Exactly,
Okay.
and this language, I believe, although I might not have seen the most recent draft, but I believe that it says that anybody that is appointed through this process serves at the pleasure of the executive committee.
Yes.
So they would get their direction from the executive committee if there were any questions about how to handle a particular case. Whereas a deputy appointed by a state's attorney, if there is any questions about how to move forward, they serve at the pleasure of the state's attorney, so they would go and get their direction from the state's attorney. But by allowing the reporting to go to the executive committee, if there is an unexpected absence in office, there's still hands at the wheel capable of providing that direction. And those hands belong to other state's attorneys who have been elected and are presumably experienced prosecutors with the necessary know-how.
Okay, thank you. That has very much resolved my questions. I think where I was going has been resolved by the case management side of it. Well, who gets assigned a case? Because I just had this nightmare scenario of which a case would be somehow attempted to be prosecuted by two separate individuals under the authority of two separate organizations, essentially. And it sounds like that is not a possibility based on you would have assigned the case and that's where it would stay.
I think the possibility of that happening is likely very minimal because of the way in which cases are handled by our deputies.
Thank you. I feel that all of my questions have been addressed.
Excellent. Are there other questions for Jen or for Evan or John?
I don't mean to slow this process down, Executive Director Campbell or Jen or whatever else, but knowing the inside operation of the state attorney's office in there, I know what you're trying to do, but what are you trying to do here with this one deputy state's attorney? And how do we, and this may not be generic, how do we, the flow of court work and police officers, where did they go? Because he's still in office, right? So what are we trying to accomplish here?
John Campbell, Executive Director of State Attorney's Office. I think what this is the fact that we are giving almost like another tool in the toolbox for the central office, that if there needs to be, if we feel that there needs to be a deputy assigned to one of the offices, and this will give us the ability to deputize them and they can prosecute anywhere in the county. So we don't have to do the individual state attorneys every time. And again, Evan's position is probably the best. He, myself, and Tim Lederstabant, who I believe you're familiar with, we already have received the appointments in all of the counties. So if something happened, we could go to one of the counties. But this will enable us to have, let's say, if we thought that one office had a real problem with dealing with the backlog or dealing with some internal issue, then we could assign a person that we believe had a special experience or aptitude to handle, a certain situation internally within the office.
Okay.
I'm not gonna hold this up, but I got a multitude of questions. We'll move on to this.
Well, I want to make sure that you're comfortable with it, Senator, so.
I'm just, no, as far as the process here, I'm comfortable with that. I'm just, the actual management of appear to be two separate offices now, separate funding or whatever else. I don't know how we're gonna control that.
I think let's say that there was a state's attorney's office that where they decided that they just didn't want to prosecute any cases. And let's say the attorney general didn't want to go in and get into by appointing special AGs, then we could go ahead and appoint a person to that office who could, in fact, handle a case. So if right, okay, why don't you explain the traffic resource?
And I didn't mean it again. Another example would be, we have two, what are called traffic resource prosecutors. There are two positions that are dedicated specifically to certain traffic-related offenses. For example, serious highway fatalities, things of that nature, or litigating emerging issues related to maybe things like breath test results or something like that. And the state of Vermont receives some federal funding to help create those positions. Those folks as well would benefit from this because they would be able to essentially just go through one exercise of taking their oath, and then they could go to any of the 14 counties to provide assistance on those specific types of cases. If the need were to arise in the future again for some sort of statewide position, some other resource prosecutor or specialized prosecutor, then they would be able to take advantage of this proposal as well. And all of the money, the budgeting, does flow through the executive director's office. It's responsible for the budgets of all 14 counties, as well as arranging for administrative support and IT support.
Okay, and this, provision you don't need budgetary for this provision.
This
Okay,
would all be internal with no appropriation requested.
okay, that's good, because that would,
And Senator, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have outside of my view.
Well, like I said, this, I mean, this position we're referring to obviously is a county near and dear to me.
Well, this is for any counties.
Well, I realize that, but we all know why we're here, okay? Anyways, I'll wait and speak with you about my concerns anyways.
okay. Are there other questions? Okay, Jen, anything?
No, I sent an edited version,
To Olivia,
corrected to Olivia.
Great. Senator Clarkson.
We won't be up on deck until later in the afternoon, the next version of the floor.
Okay.
We have a moment,
Okay.
Oh,
but we haven't actually gotten the bill yet, it's still coming.
oh,
We know we're getting it.
So we can't vote on this.
I thought we had the
I
bill.
thought we had the bill.
Because
Yeah,
we're
it's-
attaching it to.
Still not on notice yet. I mean, I think we have
Unedited
permission to deal with it, but we don't have.
We have the bill in committee, yes, Olivia?
This is, we have the charter. We're attaching it to the charter.
Well, they told,
It might not be.
John said it hadn't yet arrived. Anyway,
Oh, we have the.
Okay,
bill.
so we have it.
We have the bill. They referred it to GovOps this
right,
morning.
exactly,
Yeah,
but
so-
if for some, I think anyway, I think they're looking to have us deal with it in the next session of the floor.
Okay, well, we have to coordinate that with the House because I think that they need it before then.
Then maybe we will take this upstairs and
Yes,
deal with it.
right. So if there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to amend H 517.
So moved.
Okay, and sent a corrected, edited version to Olivia. So it's what version, what?
1.2.
1.2. Is there further discussion? All right, clerk, will you call the roll, please?
So we're voting on the amendment?
Yes, amending 517, yeah.
And then we'll vote on the amended version.
Senator Bohowski,
Yes.
Senator White,
Yes.
Senator Norris, yes. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes,
Chair Hardy.
Yes. All right, then a motion to approve.
I would move that we pass out favorably H 517 as amended.
Any further discussion? Okay, you want to call the roll?
Senator Bohowski.
Yes.
Senator White,
Yes.
Senator Norris, yes. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Clarkson.
Yes.
Chair Hardy.
Yes. Excellent. Senator Watson will be the reporter and she'll yield to me for this part of the bill.
Okay. I was like, man, you know. Woo. You're on deck.